Leaders of the major opposition political parties in Nigeria have rejected the amended Electoral Act 2026, recently signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Consequently, they have asked the National Assembly to immediately commence a fresh process of amendment, accusing the All Progressives Congress, APC, of a plot to use the amendment to rig the 2027 elections. President Tinubu recently signed the Electoral Act into law after an amendment by the National Assembly. Joining us on this show to discuss how the Electoral Act, as amended, will affect opposition parties, the clause for every party to produce its register of members, and the zoning of its presidential ticket is Ezeokenwa, National Chairman of the APGA. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us.
You call it APGA.
No, now that is here. I know in Anambra it is called APGA. But now we're going international.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to be here joining you this morning. And good morning, Ayo. Good morning, my brother. Thank you.
Okay, we've been on this subject for quite a while now. The objections by the political parties.
Absolutely.
The other day, the most recent guest we had on this show was Kenneth Okonkwo.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to rehash all the...
No, I watched the program.
So let's just have your take.
Well, for me, you see, Nigerians have been clamoring for what I may call some amendment or overhaul of the Electoral Act to serve the yearnings of Nigeria in terms of entrenching a system or culture of a credible and transparent election. That's what everybody yearns for. At least a process where you know that the people's votes must count. That's what everybody yearns for. And if we feel that the 2022 Electoral Act did not serve that aspiration, then of course there was the need for the Electoral Act to be amended. But for me and then for our party, I would say that it's some sort of mixed feelings. Yes, there are some provisions, because one thing I will not do is to stay here and outrightly condemn the Act in totality. There are some innovations in the Act. There are some innovations, there are some introductions, and even there are some that APGA had championed in the past. I will give you an example. When we came on board at this current National Working Committee of APGA, of course, under the leadership of our national leader, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, one of the innovations that APGA championed, incidentally that has become a subject of debate in this current dispensation, is the introduction of direct primaries. Some persons have felt, no, direct primary shouldn't be. You should allow the old regime where you choose between direct, indirect, or even the consensus mode. But we feel that the indirect mode of primaries was unnecessarily expensive. In fact, there was a joke that was told in 2022 that a little boy was asked what he will be when he grows up, and he said he wants to be a delegate. Yes. So for us, we felt that if you want to reduce the cost of prosecuting elections, that the best thing is to ensure, we were even looking forward to convening a national convention to entrench in our own constitution the direct mode of primaries before the National Assembly now made it mandatory under Section 84. And then, like I said, it's just a mixture of some not too favorable, some favorable. I'll give you an example of one of the unfavorable provisions. Even though we had started complying, but the extent and the time limit, just like Kenneth Okonkwo complied, was the issue of Section 77 that mandates all political parties to maintain a digital register. Under the current dispensation, we were the first to launch a digital platform for registration of members, which we launched on the first day of June 2024. Now, it has not been made a mandatory field under the new Electoral Act. But the problem there, let me tell you where the problem is, if you read from subsection 4, 5, 6, 7, you see where the problem is. Because, you see, there is this popular Supreme Court authority, Honor Hando Kafo, where the Supreme Court said that the internal affairs of a political party ought not to be justiciable. A political party should be able to manage its affairs in a way that it deems fit. If you over-legislate affairs or conduct of political parties, then it leaves no room for any I don't know how to put it, but I think for me, political party, exactly, party autonomy, if we might use that word. So political parties must have some sort of leverage. Now, what this Electoral Act will do is that it's going to kill the weaker parties. That's Section 77, because it makes certain mandatory requirements. One, you must submit your register 21 days before any primaries. Look, the register of a political party it's our document. Yes, I understand that INEC is a regulatory agency or the regulatory body that regulates and monitors the activities of political parties. But at the same time, why would you state in the Electoral Act that if a political party submits a register to you as the umpire, that it is exactly that register that party must use? So it means you're putting a barrier of admission of members. And for me, if you look at it strictly, that would be a direct violation of the freedom of association guaranteed under the Constitution. And so, as I speak to you, I think we'll have an umbrella body that connects all political parties, registered parties in Nigeria, IPAC. We're having a meeting this morning. Incidentally, the National Secretary will represent me because we've been trying to brainstorm. Yes, like I said, there are provisions of the Act that we believe, especially the issue of probably transmission of election results. Yes. And like I said, the issue of direct primaries is something we've always championed. And even the digital register. But then putting a barrier as to how we are to use that register makes it look as if we are talking about the voters register, no longer the membership register of the party.
Is there a provision that gives special advantages to the ruling party, the APC? I will assume that Section 77 applies to all the political parties. No. So when you say it's the political party trying to, the APC trying to muzzle out the opposition, that law was not made by APC. It was made by National Assembly.
I never said that. Maybe some other person did. I never said it's the APC trying to muzzle the opposition parties. I never said that. It's the National Assembly. Because there are certain, yes, we know the National Assembly is populated by APC legislators, no doubt about it. But the fact remains that if the National Assembly passes a law, it becomes an act of the National Assembly. And if it passes a law and assented to by the president, it becomes an act of the National Assembly binding on all Nigerians. And like I said, the most important thing is we recognize the fact that, yes, we have elected our representatives to go to the National Assembly to formulate laws and policies that regulate the affairs and conduct of Nigerian citizens. So to that extent, the law is valid. The only thing is that we are saying, yes, like I said, I support those that call for probably some amendments. If you, like I said, from subsection 4 of Section 77 down to subsection 7 should be expunged, in my opinion. Yes, maintain digital register. For example, in our case, like I said, we launched our digitization process on the first day of June 2024. But we couldn't have imagined that the NIN would be a compulsory field. And with the new Electoral Act, we now have to go back to begin to revalidate and update our database. Because it means that if you don't have an NIN in your database, it does not comply with the provisions of Section 77, subsection 2.
Okay, all right. So what you're asking for is, because of certain provisions of this Act, which in your estimation should be expunged? Is that what you're asking? Is that what okay. Yes. But you yourself have admitted, you've admitted to the fact that these are ways to strengthen democracies of political parties, and in so doing strengthen, the process by INEC.
Absolutely.
Is it not just for this year that this would pose a challenge because of the limit of time?
No.
Asking it to be expunged in the future, where you said to yourself that you have advocated for direct primaries, would it then not be a benefit to political parties at that? So should the conversation be around implementation, timeline or time limits given to parties, as opposed to expunging what you yourself have admitted is supposed to strengthen the internal democracies of political parties?
Now, to understand what I mean by expunging, it is not all provisions.
Yeah, but the provision I'm coming.
This is where no. I said from subsection 4.
Okay.
Subsection 2 talks about the mandatory field. Subsection 3 says that if a member is registered, he should be issued a membership card. Now, where the problem is now from subsection 4, that first requires you to submit this register 21 days before the conduct of primaries, and stipulates that it is only those whose names are contained in that register that can vote and be voted for. What does it mean? It means that if you, Ayo, we have submitted this register to INEC, and for any reason you feel that APGA is the platform that you believe that you can achieve your aspiration, by parity of reasoning, it means that you cannot come to APGA and contest because your name, at the time you are coming to contest that election, we had already submitted a register to the commission. And so now what it means is that you're putting stipulations to political parties as to who a political party should nominate, a matter that should strictly be the internal affair or regulation of a party. That's where I have problem.
I still maintain that aside from this election cycle,
exactly.
for future election cycles, would that not be strengthening the process? Because what we want to see is where we have standardized political parties.
I agree.
At that time, you have enough time to set a deadline for anyone who might want to join your party.
If you take this argument a little further, you see, our democracy is evolving. If you take this argument a little further, ordinarily, my brother Rufai here will agree with me. It is maybe practically impossible to hear that a Democrat in America will wake up the following morning and become a Republican.
Yes, exactly.
So I agree with you to that extent, because in Nigeria, membership of political party ought to be ideological. Yeah. It should be ideologically based. You are a member. If you come to APGA, apparently it means you must have read the provisions of APGA constitution and read the manifesto of the party, and you believe that the ideology of this party aligns with what you believe, your political belief. That is what should fuel your membership of a political party. But in Nigeria today, political parties, more or less, nobody identifies political parties based on ideologies they profess. It is seen largely as a vehicle for ascension to political power. And so to that extent, I agree with you. But the most important thing here is this. The Constitution, like I said, remember, the Constitution is the ground norm. The Constitution allows freedom of association. An act trying to prescribe the limits and qualifications of your membership of a political party, I don't think you will ever sit well with me.
Two things.
Yes.
I use the very harsh word on the opposition. We say coalition of jokers, and I'm being proven right every day. You know why?
Yes.
From your arguments,
yes,
what you are concerned about is different from what some other people are concerned about.
No, of course.
They are concerned about transmission. You are concerned about something else. So there's no concert, no concurrence. Secondly, you brought electoral law.
This is Electoral Act.
Electoral Act.
Yes.
Some people say they didn't see it. So that's why I'm asking.
Yes.
What research departments? What scenario planning? Why didn't you people pick it before now? Some people say they've not even seen it. Some people say they are waiting for the what? The Gazette.
Yes.
You get.
Well.
Third point I want to make is this. This system that has now been put in place, that you people are complaining of, does it still solve the problem? The bribery will just move from bribing delegates to bribing people, which is going to be easy because, and it's going to foster corruption. I'll tell you why. Because what it means is that the same voters you bribe in the general election, you will bribe in the primaries.
It's an assumption.
No, it is the same. On the strength of the argument that you still induce voters at the polling units, you induce them during the primaries.
Yes.
So in fact, it even makes it easier because you will now have a chronicle of those you bribe already in your primary.
Yes.
And you can just use that one to be sending them alert prior to the main election process. And that's why I keep saying it's a coalition of opposition jokers, because there's no concert of thought, there's no concert of opinion.
You know, I will answer you. First of all, you have asked a three-pronged question. One, I don't want to sound controversial, but then I do not share the sentiment about transmission of results. I must say this.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a lawyer. And why do I say this? You know, I remember there's a book, Dr.
But some people that you are sitting there in the opposition share it too.
Of course, some people share it.
That's their point.
Yes,
that's why they even don't have
concert. Of course, that's their point. You know, first, I will even come to the issue of opposition, if we strictly use that word. I know you know Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You see, I think the major problem is that people do not understand what INEC means by the terminology transmission of results. There's been some confusion, both in the National Assembly, among opposition, among civil society organizations, and among Nigerians. If you have a conversation with the ICT of INEC, they will tell you the IREF, where polling results are transmitted, is a viewing platform, it's not a collation portal. And apparently, there is that misconception that electronic transmission of results equals to or equates to electronic collation. They are two distinct things. And if you read the Act, you will see that what we have is manual collation. Electronic transmission means at the end of election at the polling unit, the presiding officer, after announcing the result, recording the result in the polling unit and allowing everybody to sign, the agent, we simply use the Beavers machine to scan the result and send to the IREF. That result in the IREF, the critical question is, what does that result in the IREF? What's the purpose of that result? That's not the result that INEC collects. That result is so that you and I can actually sit in the comfort of our house and view that result as they come out real time.
That has been determined
now.
Article versus INEC.
Exactly.
They are saying we don't have to.
Exactly. So
now this law that you have in front of you,
yes,
is it unknown?
I have the law?
No, because we were told by Kenneth Okonkwo that the law is unknown because it's not being gazetted.
If you have followed the process, the whole amendment, because I would have come here with the schedule of amendment. From day one, I followed this process. And
is the law known or unknown?
Of course, it is a known law. It's an act of. We saw when the president signed the act of the new Electoral Act.
No, so what do you mean by says if it is not gazetted?
Yes, we understand.
It is not known.
We understand.
And that you could not have conducted election in the Federal Capital Territory with an unknown law.
Is it the gazetting that makes the law valid?
That's the question I wanted you to answer.
As simple as that. Quickly. It's not. If a law has been made, first of all, you go and look for the commencement date. If it has a commencement date, once it is signed into law, it commences on the commencement date as contained in the Act. If it has no commencement date, then it commences immediately the president signs it into law.
30 seconds to you followed all these processes started. Why didn't you point this particular section out before now?
Which section?
The 77 you were talking about as regards...
the subsection 4.
Like I said, it aligns...
No, why did you talk about this?
You see, part of the issue, when you say point it out, part of the issue is that, you see, the law donates powers to the commission. The commission is the monitoring and the observatory agency for political parties. There is really no problem with that. The only thing is that I feel that this personally, on a personal level, it's not as if there is anything, like I said, if we really practice politics of ideology, then there is no reason why anybody should move from one political party to the other.
Why did you say this long? Doctor, we have to go.
Chairman Algad, we thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're running out of time. It's good. We now know that the law is known. And it is